Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Alex Brosey with Rain City Capital. Thank you so much for finding the time to learn a little bit more about hard money. I'm going to jump right into the first question that we got, which is there any benefit to getting a real estate license as an investor? I definitely think there is. There's a couple key things that realtors get to do that normal people in the public don't. One of them being having direct access to the Northwest MLS. That is where all listings that make it onto the market in pretty much all of Western Washington and some of Eastern Washington, that is their hub. That's where they all are. As an agent, you also get access to what's called the e-key. So houses that are listed that have a box on them, you can actually enter the house and get a chance to walk around. There's some rules and regulations on how to do that properly and legally, but it's super simple. So that's another huge benefit. There's really a ton of them. The kind of key factor, though, about being the real estate agent is most of the benefits that you're getting are only going to come from dealing with properties that are on the market. For example, another kind of key benefit is if you are your own agent, when you go to list your house for sale, you don't have to necessarily pay yourself the 3%, or you can, and you just take it on the back end. It's basically just like more money that you're able to keep in your pocket. So that's great. But if you're buying a wholesale property or a property that's unlisted, you're not going to see that benefit. So I definitely think it's worth it. It's probably $600 up front and, maybe a month's worth of some extra work every couple of hours a day. And then depending on where you hang your license, there's a lot of brokerages out there that will let you stay there for free, maybe just paying errors and emissions insurance, which is super cheap. I mean, like 30, 40 bucks a month. And then you have to renew your license every couple of years. And the cost for renewing is, again, probably somewhere between $300 and $600. So I think it's worth it. Occasionally there's going to be something where you're just like, I just wish I was an agent. I'm a loan officer and I'm an agent strictly for the access to the Northwest MLS, which between paying my brokerage and just the upkeep on my license and my e-key, I probably spend maybe 150 bucks a month keeping my license. But that's how much the Northwest MLS access means to me. So you just kind of have to weigh that stuff out and see if it's worthwhile. I definitely think that there is a ton of benefit to being a realtor. It was a great question, though. Another question we have here is, and actually, I just want to mention to everyone in the call, if you have a question that you want to answer, you can drop that in the Q&A. There's a little button on the bottom of Zoom. It says Q&A. You can answer them there. And as they come up, I will answer them or do my best to answer all of them. We luckily got a lot for the first one, so we'll knock out a couple before the class is over. And if there's any extras live, I'll get to those first. So next question here is, what are some benefits to using hard money? So that the list is kind of countless, depending on your situation, who you are as a borrower, what the project looks like, what is the project, where is the project. I would kind of just to chop it up into what are maybe the biggest benefits to hard money. Number one is we are focusing mostly on the asset. When you're talking to a hard money lender, they're looking at the project and really the return on the investment, which is a huge help to people who maybe they themselves aren't the prettiest borrower. Maybe you have a lower credit score, or maybe you're a independent business owner, so your taxes don't look good. So being able to have asset-based lending is huge. We're usually just collecting a bank statement to show that you have assets to cover down payment, maybe some reserves, construction, if you're not going to finance it. And then we're looking strictly at the asset. Once we're done with you, which usually takes us, a span of maybe 30 minutes to look at your credit, your background, and your bank statement, then we're focusing strictly on the asset. So it's a huge benefit to hard money, compared to a conventional lender who wants to just chop you up and dissect you into however many pieces they can to figure out if you are a trustworthy borrower for them, how high or low you fall on their risk scale. So that's a huge benefit. Another huge benefit is speed. With a conventional lender, you just don't have the speed behind you to be able to close. I mean, we've closed transactions within 24 hours. I would say from the time that I have every document I need to close the deal, from the time that we send docs to escrow and balance with them, is usually 72 hours. And that encompasses underwriting, processing, and docs out, and then being balanced as well with escrow. So at that point, we're waiting on escrow to get you as the buyer signed, and then we can fund. So the super speediest way to be able to close on a real estate transaction outside of legitimately having all of the cash to make the purchase is hard money. So that's a huge factor, a huge benefit to using hard money. And then probably the last thing I'll touch on with hard money, one of the biggest benefits is just the being creative. We have the ability to look at transactions in so many different ways, whether it's cross collateralization, whether it's doing multiple different types of collateral where we're collateralizing some of the cash, we're collateralizing a property or two, we're being creative in the fact that maybe you as a borrower have a 510 credit score and a recent foreclosure. So we don't want to lend to you, but you can set up an LLC with a partner. You can reduce your ownership so that you still have some viable protection against loss. You can still be on that loan. We can still originate the loan because your partner has a more favorable credit history. So just being able to look at deals in so many different ways and still be able to get stuff done is another huge benefit to hard money. And we have a live question. Awesome. So this question is from Madeline, and it says, do I need an LLC to invest in a property? Great question, Madeline. Thank you. Do you need an LLC to invest? No, you definitely don't. You can do it in your personal name. If multiple people are purchasing, multiple people's names can be on that purchase contract and on title. The same goes for an LLC. You can purchase in an LLC. I'm not a CPA or an attorney, but I do generally recommend that investors who plan to invest multiple times or want to have investing become their replacement for their income, that they should get an LLC. Again, not an attorney or a CPA. Definitely consult both when you're trying to make the decision on whether or not you want to have an LLC to invest in property with. But there's some asset protection. There's some tax benefits to investing in an LLC. So I definitely think it's worthwhile, but there's just a couple of things you'll have to weigh out with your attorney or with your accountant to figure out if it's kind of the best option for you. Madeline, thank you for that. Next question here. Let's see, when should you and when should you not collateralize? That is an awesome question. And I'm glad whoever asked that knew that we have that as an option. But it's a super hefty topic. And it's very specific to certain people, and there's certain ways that we can collateralize. So I'll only touch on it in a little bit and then do kind of a shameless plug. I am going to be having a rental financing presentation that not only covers some of the collateralization, but several different ways that Rain City, Hard Money, myself can help you obtain more rental properties. So be looking out for that. We hopefully should be able to have that released before the end of January, but for sure by February. So I'll make sure that you guys see that. So just kind of the shorthand, when should you collateralize? Most of the time collateralization happens when we're trying to find equity, or find your portion of a project's cost somewhere else, like in another property. So for instance, if you own a property free and clear in Snohomish and you want to buy another property in Snohomish, rather than having your down payment or even your points or even your closing costs, depending on how much asset or equity that you have in that asset, we can replace your cash cost with the equity that's in whatever the collateral is. So in a property, if this house that you own in Snohomish is free and clear and it's worth $325,000, we can assign some portion of that value as equity that will transfer into this new loan, which keeps more cash in your pocket. So when should you do that? Really, you should do it whenever you can. I mean, it's a great way to keep more cash in your pocket. It's a great way to keep your cash free so that if you see another project, you still have the cash to go after it. Yeah, as much as you possibly could do it. There are some prerequisites, right? You've got to be able to get a property. You've got to be able to have value in that property, and generally substantial. We usually want it to be free and clear for the deal to really make sense. So when should you not collateralize? Well, obviously, if you don't have something to collateralize, you can't do that. Collateralization is very, there's a lot of different things that can change whether or not it makes sense to collateralize or not, but a couple key factors. Collateralization does tie up your other property. So if you've got plans for that property other than keeping it, maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense to collateralize because you're going to be offloading that project. Um, Other times it doesn't necessarily make sense to collateralize. If you have a project that's going to take a really, really long time, maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense to collateralize. But again, every scenario is so unique when collateralization is involved, because most of the time people are trying to acquire something without having money come out of their pocket. So if it's that simplest case where you own something free and clear and you want to buy something else, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't collateralize it. But there are some really, really interesting scenarios where collateralization doesn't make sense. And basically, we just have to talk through them, which is one of my favorite parts about being a hard money lender is because we are so creative, because we can do so many things. We have these crazy, crazy conversations about how we can make stuff work. So if you actually do have a collateralization scenario, make sure to reach out to me. My email is posted somewhere. Same thing with my phone number. Either way is a good way to reach out to me. So it looks like we got time for one more here. Oh, okay, here's a good one. How do I get a lower rate? I'm sure a lot of people, when they hear hard money, they think 12% or higher, and they think that that's just what it is. But we do have different ways to get people different interest rates, just like you do with a conventional lender. The easiest and fastest way to get a lower rate is to have completed projects. Our kind of rule of thumb is the last 36 months, but potentially, if you've been doing this for a long, long, long time, you've got a lot of experience under your belt, those completed projects are going to be the easiest way for us to say, hey, let's give you a lower rate because you're showing that you know what you're doing and that you're continuing to do it. So those are definitely borrowers that we want to work with. That's an easy way to get a lower rate. The other way to get a lower rate is competition, right? I mean, if we're competing against somebody else, we want to win. If the deal makes sense and it's something that we would lend on normally, that's another great way to get a rate reduced is by having somebody trying to compete against us. We love to take new clients on, having new investors and new borrowers at our disposal. So if we can do that with a half a point on the rate, we're more than willing to do so. So that is it, guys. Thank you so much for joining the live Q&A. We got a couple questions answered. We will be doing this weekly, every week, Mondays at 1. So you can refer to that same link. And if you have another question that hits you, you can answer it there, register for the next one. Again, all my contact information is available too. So if you don't want to wait a week and you want to get in touch, email or phone works just fine for me. I'm more than happy to have some time chat with you. Thank you guys so much for being here.